Every nation for itself, God for we all. There is no better time in human history to exemplify that statement by late British Prime Minister George Canning. The Trump administration's decision to streamline the U.S. immigration system, which over the years has been described as a broken one, is unprecedented. Across the world, many countries are asking questions: what is happening to the United States when it comes to implementing laws related to immigration? Well, just one certainty: the United States is simply applying laws already established by the country for its protection. To unpack all what is happening with the U.S. immigration system policies under President Donald Trump since last January 20, my guest today on the program is a U.S. Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Cameroon, Christopher John Lamora. Ambassador Christopher John Lamora, thank you very much indeed for talking once more to the Cameroon Radio Television and through Globe Watch.
Thank you, Charles. Happy to do it.
Yes, I should mention that just before you and I came on the airwaves, President Donald Trump hours ago signed a proclamation banning travels with few exemptions for citizens of roughly 12 countries, including 3 from the Economic and Monetary Community of Central African States, CEMAC, basically Equatorial Guinea, Chad, and Congo, Brazzaville. I should understand that this is a continuation of the various measures taken to streamline immigration to the U.S., right?
Charles, first of all, thank you for doing this special program on immigration. It's the highest priority of President Trump since, as you said, he came into office in January, and it's something that we have spent a lot of time working on here at the U.S. Embassy in Cameroon. Every country has the right, every country has the obligation to do whatever it deems necessary to protect its borders, its territory, its citizens, and that includes being careful about who comes into the country. The proclamation that you refer to is extraordinarily long. I would recommend that people who want to see more of it look on our White House.
Nearly 5,000 words.
It's an enormously long, but it's very detailed. And the reason for that is that the president and his team went out of their way to say, here is the reason we are putting these restrictions on this country, that country, etc. And so for the details, I would strongly recommend people actually look at the proclamation itself. But that is, as you said, in the context of a renewed commitment, a strong commitment by the president, by the administration, to enforce U.S. immigration laws that are already on the books, and to put other measures into place to protect the American territory and the American people to the greatest extent possible.
On day one of his administration, the president signed 26 executive orders. A good chunk of them were on immigration. Why is the president so focused on solving U.S. immigration issues? Even during the campaign, he talked so much about it.
You know, Americans across the board, American citizens, American political figures, have known for years that our immigration system has been broken. There are a lot of things that are very good about it, and there are a lot of things that needed to be fixed. And the president has a very strong mandate. He was elected by 77 million people. He has a very, very strong mandate to enforce those policies and to put new policies into place that are going to protect the United States.
Let's look at immigration sector level. Let's start with borders. What is wrong with U.S. borders? Are they so porous? How many illegal people are in the U.S. today?
So to your second question first, it's almost impossible to know exactly how many people are illegally in the United States. It's a question of how do you know what you don't know? If we knew how many there were, we would have an easier time removing them. And there are two different kinds of...
The Pew Research Institute says that there are roughly 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States.
And I take the Pew Research Institute's findings as the Pew Research Institute's findings.
Okay.
But we are talking about, for example, people who may have gone illegally in the first place, people who undertook desert crossings and Mediterranean Sea crossings and the like, and never had a document that would have allowed them to enter the United States. And then we are separately talking about people who went legitimately with U.S. visas, as tourists, as students, as business people, and never went home. So it's kind of tough to tell. To your first question about how are U.S. borders controlled, the U.S. borders are porous. We've known that for decades. The U.S.-Canadian border is the longest unfortified border in the world, and the U.S.-Mexican border has never really been fully controlled. That's why thousands, if not millions, of people annually are crossing both of those borders in the United States. And the President is redoubling the efforts of the U.S. Immigration Services, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and others to take the measures necessary to control them.
The Immigration and Customs Enforcement Administration, ICE, as you call it in the U.S., is of course responsible in connection with the administering authority, the Department of Homeland Security, established after the September 2001 terrorist attacks to secure the United States. What kind of measures have they taken already since January?
Well, the President has created, under ICE, he's created zones on the U.S. side of the U.S.-Mexican border where there's a greater control on the U.S. territory side. It's easier for U.S. law enforcement, including, as you said, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, to interdict people who do make it across the border. And there have been a lot of conversations with the Mexican government about how we can cooperate to better control the border.
One of the ways the President has done that is deportation. And deportation is not new to the U.S. Immigration Services. Since January, some estimates put it at roughly 140,000 people who have already been expelled from the U.S., existing there illegally, or as the President calls them, they are part of the cartels, rapists, criminals. The Biden administration total in 2024 expelled roughly 427,000 people. Statistics vary from one agency to another. Apart from deportation, what other actions has the President taken to demonstrate his commitment in ensuring, delivering to the American people his mandate of fixing the U.S., what you just called, and he calls, a broken immigration system?
Well, I think there's a few things to bear in mind, Charles. One is that immigration enforcement does not start with deportations. You're very right that that is one piece of the immigration process, and that's once people have been there and they are found not to be there legally and they are kicked out. But it's important to remember that immigration enforcement, immigration control starts before someone ever goes to the United States. That is why at the U.S. Embassy here in Yaoundé, at our U.S. embassies around the world, our consular officers have been given new instructions. They've been given new authorities and tools to better vet from the very beginning people who apply for visas to go to the United States. A Cameroonian comes into the U.S. Embassy and says, I want to go and I want to be a tourist, or I want to go visit my cousin in the United States for 2 weeks. We are really taking our time. Our consular officers, our consular staff are doing due diligence in a renewed way and a strengthened way. They are looking at, for example, depending on the visa classification the people are applying for, what does that person's social media profile look like? Is there any risk that there's something in this person's history that could be a danger to the United States? What are their intentions when they go to the United States? And really digging down in a way that we haven't in the past. And I think that's exactly the right thing that we should be doing, because that prevents people from traveling in the first place, and you don't end up deporting them down the line.
Let us just stay with Cameroon. People read a lot on social media, they watch a lot of foreign television, they listen to the radio. Let us just have the message clear to all those traveling to the United States from Cameroon. What concretely do you tell them that this is our new way?
Well, the bottom line, do it legally. Do it the right way, follow the right procedures, and the system is designed to allow people who are legitimate travelers to be able to go and to stop those who aren't. What we don't want to see happen, and unfortunately what happens not just with Cameroonians but around the world, is people undertaking expensive, dangerous, life-threatening journeys across the Sahara, across the Mediterranean, across the Atlantic. They put themselves in the hands of nefarious individuals, bad actors, who sometimes will retain their passports and, in essence, put them into servitude when they arrive in the United States to pay off having made that journey. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to sit on a panel here with a couple of Cameroonian ministers, the Minister of Youth and the Minister of Economy, where we spoke to a group of 250 young Cameroonians and said, don't do it.
During the 10th anniversary of the Mandela Washington Fellow in Cameroon.
Exactly. And that was a great opportunity because Mandela Washington is our flagship exchange program. And even those who do not participate in the program itself participate in affiliated programs. They were brought together, and the two ministers and I were able to say, do this the right way. Don't put your lives at risk. Stay home, and let's see how we can make your lives better here.
Your Excellency, when you talk of doing it the right way, do it legally, I understand that you are decrying fraud in the immigration system on the part of Cameroonians, for example, who may like to travel in the US. At the level of the embassy, what kind of recurrent issues you have noticed that people do which are wrong, which may end in a disastrous manner? So wrong bank statements, using second channel, back channels to secure a visa, they go to the US, they never come back.
So let me split your question apart, Charles, because I wasn't just referring to fraud in the visa process. When I said do it the right way, what I meant fundamentally was don't put yourselves at the mercy of these people who only want your money and do not have your interests at heart.
Okay.
Okay? Don't risk your lives. To the second part of your question, yes, sometimes it's false bank statements, it's false job attestations, it's claims of relationships that don't really exist. I'm not sure what you meant by back channel approaches to getting a visa.
Well, people claim that they work at the embassy, go and produce wrong documents somewhere in the city or somewhere around the country that looks like consular officers that work at the embassy, or any kind of fake document. Actually, that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I can tell you right now, I can tell your viewers right now, that anybody that they meet around and about town or around and about Cameroon who says, hey, I work at the embassy and I can help you get a visa, those people are fraudsters. They do not work with us. They do not have any authority to speak for us. They have no engagement in the visa process whatsoever. People should not hear folks who say, hey, I can get you a US visa. There are legitimate services out there. Some of them are in the neighborhood of the embassy, where people will help you by helping make photocopies, or they'll take your photograph and things like that. Those are totally legitimate businesses. But anybody who says, if you give me $1,000 or you give me 50,000 CFA, I'm going to get you a US visa, they are lying to you. Don't give them your money.
Your Excellency, let's talk the category of visas that take people to the US. One of them is F1, I hope is student visa.
Correct.
And one of those visas or ways of getting to the US is through education. And I understand for the moment that there is a temporary pause on student visas getting to the United States. What is wrong with students who have been going to the United States over the years? They are no longer good ambassadors of the US educational system? Or for those who will be writing end of course examinations in Cameroon this year, for example, the GCE, the baccalaureate, who may secure scholarships to go to the US. What message do you have to that kind of category of visa users?
Look, whether it's students, whether it's tourists, whether it's business people, we want to encourage people, we want to encourage Cameroonians to go to the United States, to take positive advantage of their experiences there and come back to Cameroon and put those lessons or those business contacts to work. That is still the case, and I cannot imagine that that would ever change. For people who are thinking about going to university in the United States, what I would say is we want to continue to encourage legitimate students to go to school in the United States. The pause that is in effect right now is so that we can stop, we can look at what procedures do we have in place to ensure that people are not using the student visa system erroneously, and that if they go to the United States, that they are not going to engage in actions while in the US that are contrary to US interests. At the end of the day, the immigration system of the United States, just like the immigration system of Cameroon, is designed to protect The U.S. homeland, the Cameroonian homeland. Your system is designed to protect Cameroon. Ours is designed to protect the United States. If somebody says, I want to go be a student at ABC University, we're going to look at them. We're going to say, okay, your GCEs or your baccalaureate, is that paperwork legit? Are you going to a legitimate school? Do you have the qualifications necessary? And again, I want to come back to the social media piece because that's very important, especially for younger people. I am of a generation where when I was in university, there was no social media. If we wanted to say something, we said it. If we wanted, but now, somebody puts something out on social media that can be interpreted as a threat, that can be interpreted in a way that we think, well, you know what, that's not the person that we want in the United States, we're going to stop them from going.
Your Excellency, you spoke a while ago that there are people entered the United States legally, like temporary protected status, TPS, and any other forms, and they overstayed. They did not come back. For some students who, even those of U.S. exchange programs, some of them who were supposed to come back. What happened to such individuals in the U.S.? Are they equally part of the entire deportation system? I've seen many of them in other parts of the world being taken out of the U.S.
Okay, so you threw a couple of things into that question, Charles. Let me take TPS, temporary protected status, first. So temporary protected status was instituted by the Biden administration in early 2022, and it was designed at the time to give Cameroonians in the United States an opportunity to apply not to have to be deported if they would otherwise have been deported because of the situation on the ground here in Cameroon. That was renewed again in December of 2023, so it's been in effect for 3 years now. This past week, in fact, just yesterday, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Kristi Noem, published in our Federal Register, which is sort of like the Cameroon Tribune, where the government puts its legal documents, that in 60 days from now, temporary protected status for Cameroonians is going to expire. So as of the beginning of August, TPS will no longer be in effect. It will no longer be an opportunity for people in the United States, and those who already availed themselves of the process and the program will then again be subject to deportation.
So what happens to those Cameroonians? How many of them particularly may be expelled? I mean, now let me talk about Cameroonians who are in the U.S. in conditions of being expelled. What happens to them? Sent to Cameroon, deported to Guantanamo, sent to Guatemala, or to El Salvador? What happens?
Look, the desire of the United States government is and has always been that if we remove somebody from the United States for whatever reason, deportation is the word you keep using, that they are going to return to their home country, whether that's their country of citizenship or their country of residence, but they're going to go back to where they came from. That is the goal. And I will say that Cameroonians across the board, at least in my 3 years here, come home. And the Cameroonian government actually has been a great partner with us in ensuring that when Cameroonians are deported, that they are received at the airport, that they are given whatever benefits the Cameroonian government gives, and they are able to reintegrate into Cameroonian society. That is the ideal when someone is deported from the United States.
Another part of the immigration system is basically the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act in the United States. But that is not even part of my interest today. As you know, Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution empowers the President of the United States to sign a series of executive orders, and that is what the President has been doing over the past roughly 5 months or so that he has been in office. Insofar as immigration is concerned, it keeps on using the word people who constitute a risk. They are a danger to the U.S. national security. That word is recurrent. What is the available information of foreign nationals living in the United States, either legally or illegally? What have they been doing? What are the recurrent crimes that they have been committing that do not permit them to live in the United States? Of course, America has the absolute right to secure its national territory.
So there are any number of things. You mentioned in an earlier question, you talked about gangs. One of the targets of President Trump's immigration enforcement has been South American and specifically Venezuelan gang members. And Cameroon would not want a bunch of foreign gang members, violent people, drug dealers, murderers running around freely in Cameroon. And so that has been one specific target. There are other laws on the books in the United States that have been in effect for a long time that say that if you are convicted of a crime in the United States and you go to jail, when you serve your prison sentence, if you are not a U.S. citizen, that you can then be deported. Even though you've already served the time for what you did, we don't want you back out on our streets, and we will send you home. People who have committed everything from rape to murder to burglary to assault, drug dealing fall into those categories.
Having looked at all what has happened in the past 5 months and even in previous administrations, what is the message that the administration is sending to all partner countries around the world when it comes to immigration currently in the United States? And this is possibly going to endure over the years.
So I like the fact that you used the word partner, because I said a minute ago that the Cameroonian government has been very good about receiving back Cameroonian nationals who are deported. That's a partnership. And I also want to commend them for the work that the Cameroonian government has done to address and prevent human trafficking. You go to the airport in Yaoundé, you go to the airport in Douala, there are signs there that talk about, you know, if you think that you are being trafficked, if you think you are being abused in immigration, there are numbers that you can contact within the Cameroonian government. So we're very happy with that cooperation as well. The bottom line is, as I said at the beginning, the United States has a right, has an obligation to protect its citizens, protect the country, decide who gets in, decide who goes out, and that is what we are in the process of doing. And President Trump has made it very, very clear that that is what he intends to continue doing.
Excellence, Monsieur l'ambassadeur, depuis l'arrivée du président Trump au pouvoir le 20 janvier dernier, il a décidé de prendre le sujet d'immigration aux États-Unis comme un élément phare de son administration. Auparavant, comme on dit vulgairement au Cameroun, il y avait quoi avant?
Les anciennes administrations des États-Unis, les présidents qui ont précédé le président Trump, ont toujours eu la responsabilité, le droit d'enforcer les lois américaines par rapport à la migration. Et ce que le président Trump fait, il a décidé depuis le début, parce que ceux qui l'ont voté ont dit que c'est un engagement très important pour eux, c'est de dire: nous n'allons plus permettre aux gens qui ont la possibilité ou l'intention de faire de mauvaises choses contre la loi américaine d'entrer aux États-Unis. Et donc, depuis le 20 janvier, quand le président Trump a fait la prestation de serment, il a dit que on va renforcer les lois qui existent, on va mettre plus de lois, plus d'ordre. Les ambassades des États-Unis partout dans le monde vont faire beaucoup plus profondément des recherches avant de délivrer des visas à des gens qui ont sollicité. Et c'est ce que nous faisons ici aussi à l'ambassade à Yaoundé.
Depuis donc l'arrivée du président, quelles sont les nouvelles actions, quelles sont les nouvelles politiques, quelles sont les nouvelles idées que vous implémentez partout dans le monde, y compris ici à Yaoundé, pour régler ou bien régulariser l'immigration aux États-Unis?
Bon, j'ai deux messages principaux. Le premier, c'est que nous regardons maintenant d'une manière beaucoup plus profonde les actions et les publications des personnes qui sollicitent des visas aux médias sociaux. Donc, nous allons regarder, nous avons depuis 2019, je crois, demandé dans les applications de visa que les personnes nous donnent par exemple, en Facebook, je m'appelle ça, en Instagram, je m'appelle ça. Et on regarde, parce qu'on ne veut pas permettre d'entrer aux États-Unis des gens qui ont une histoire d'avoir dit des choses qui seraient contre les intérêts nationaux des États-Unis. Juste comme le Cameroun n'aimerait pas que de telles personnes entrent ici. La deuxième chose, et je dirais que ça c'est même plus important que ce que nous faisons dans l'ambassade, c'est je veux demander, je demande fortement, comme on dit dans les régions du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest, à beg, que les Camerounais n'utilisent que le système régulier, légal, pour aller aux États-Unis. Qu'ils n'aillent pas à trouver des gens dans la rue qui disent « je peux vous donner un visa, vous me payez un tel montant, etc. » Il faut le faire à travers l'ambassade et de le faire correctement.
Voyager aux États-Unis légalement, avoir une histoire correcte avec les documents authentiques, c'est bien, mais il y a beaucoup de Camerounais vivant aux États-Unis qui sont entrés soit légalement ou bien ils ont débordé les séjours aux États-Unis qui étaient légalement. Quel est le ressort dans le système de déportation massif, l'une des actions engagées par le président?
Bon, ce que nous voulons faire avec les gens qui sont déjà là, c'est que si on trouve que les personnes sont des États-Unis, soit ils sont entrés illégalement dès le début, soit ils sont restés, comme vous l'avez bien dit, ils sont entrés correctement, mais ils ne sont pas partis après le séjour prévu, on va les trouver, on va les arrêter, on va les mettre dans les prisons pendant un certain temps et on va les renvoyer au pays d'où ils sont venus. Et donc, si on ne veut pas expérimenter tout ça, soit le faire légalement, soit ils peuvent s'en aller maintenant eux-mêmes avant que les autorités migratoires des États-Unis les trouvent, parce qu'il vaudrait mieux que de telles personnes quittent les États-Unis de sa propre volonté que d'être arrêtées.
Il y en a combien actuellement pour les Camerounais? Je sais qu'il y a au moins 11 millions des immigrés clandestins aux États-Unis. Les Camerounais concernés, là, ils sont combien?
Bon, les chiffres sont toujours quelque chose qui est très difficile à préciser, parce qu'en effet, la question que vous venez de poser veut que je vous dise un chiffre qu'on ne peut pas savoir. Comment je peux savoir combien de personnes sont là illégalement? S'ils sont là illégalement, ça veut dire qu'ils n'ont pas touché le gouvernement des États-Unis. Donc, le gouvernement ne peut pas savoir exactement combien il y en a. Mais, vous avez raison, globalement, il y a des millions. Et donc, c'est pour ça que ça devient un peu de menace. Et c'est ce que le président Trump a dit depuis le début. On va mettre fin à ce menace.
Les États-Unis accueillent pas moins d'1 million des étudiants étrangers chaque année, y compris ceux qui viennent du Cameroun. Le plus grand nombre des étudiants étrangers aux États-Unis, c'est l'Inde, suivi par la Chine, ou bien la Corée du Sud, ou tout court la Corée. Vous venez d'imposer un arrêt temporaire pour les visas liés aux étudiants internationaux aux États-Unis. Quel message avez-vous pour les étudiants camerounais ou bien ceux qui souhaitent aller étudier aux États-Unis? Il y a 2 jours, un étudiant qui a eu une bourse d'étudier aux États-Unis. Je l'ai rencontré, qui m'informait que son visa a été annulé. Comment gérer ce cas?
Bon, je ne vais pas parler d'un cas spécifique. Je ne connais pas la personne, je ne connais pas les détails de son cas. Généralement, ce que je veux dire par rapport aux étudiants, c'est que nous continuons à encourager aux étudiants étrangers d'assister à des universités américaines. C'est important. Nous avons le système éducatif le meilleur du monde et les gens qui veulent en profiter, on veut qu'ils continuent à le faire. Mais faisant partie du système et de l'enforcement des lois américaines par rapport à l'immigration, le président a dit qu'on va temporairement au moins cesser de continuer le processus de visa parce que nous voulons prendre le temps extra pour réviser par exemple les médias sociaux de telles personnes, parce que les jeunes sont ceux qui utilisent le plus les médias sociaux, pour voir ce qu'ils ont dit dans le passé, etc. Mais ce que j'attends, c'est que cet arrêt temporaire sera relaxé, je dirais, je ne sais pas si je peux le dire comme ça, et que on va recommencer de nouveau mais avec des scrutins beaucoup plus profonds.
Quel est votre dernier message aux utilisateurs des services consulaires de l'ambassade des États-Unis au Cameroun ou bien les autres citoyens du monde qui veulent se séjourner aux États-Unis? Parce que avant de venir faire cette interview, j'ai vu la nouvelle proclamation du président interdisant les citoyens de certains pays de ne pas aller aux États-Unis. Bientôt, vous allez accueillir les grandes compétitions internationales, la Coupe du Monde, les Jeux Olympiques, l'année prochaine la Coupe du Monde, en 2028, les Jeux Olympiques. Je sais que les athlètes sont exclus de cette interdiction, mais globalement, quel est le message que vous donnez à vos partenaires partout dans le monde aujourd'hui?
Okay. La proclamation qui interdit partiellement ou entièrement l'entrée aux États-Unis des citoyens d'environ 12 pays, c'est une proclamation très très longue, plus de 5000 mots. Donc, je préfère ne pas aller dans les détails de ça non plus, parce que ça n'implique pas le Cameroun d'aucune manière, et je ne veux pas que les téléspectateurs pensent que ça a une relation avec le Cameroun, ce qui n'existe pas. Mais généralement, on va continuer à mettre fin à la migration illégale et irrégulière aux États-Unis.
Clandestine? Clandestine
même, c'est une autre manière de le décrire. Mais le message le plus important que j'ai pour les téléspectateurs de votre programme, Charles, c'est que d'utiliser d'abord les systèmes de l'ambassade, les systèmes agréés, gouvernementaux, etc. des États-Unis, de lire bien le site Internet, la page de Facebook, etc. pour avoir les bonnes informations avant de commencer le processus, de ne pas utiliser des documents faux, de ne pas utiliser les gens dans la rue qui disent « si vous me payez tel montant, je peux avoir le visa pour vous pour aller aux États-Unis ». Ces personnes sont des menteurs, sont des criminels et ce n'est pas quelque chose qu'on devrait faire.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for being guest on our program, and we hope to see you very soon in other occasions, and why not on CRTV2. Thank you very much.
All right, Charles, thank you.
You're welcome, Your Excellency.